Hello everybody, so we have this weakening question here. So some manufacturers of computer softwares have proposed cutting cost by distributing instructions manuals for their programs on computer disk only, so that computer users can refer to them on a computer screen rather than having to deal with unwillingly printed manuals that are costly for manufacturers to produce. So this question says that the computer companies do have some manuals that they give it to the new users. Now this manual can come in two formats. One is in the digital format on the computers, and second is the hard copy, that is on papers, right? So what this company has done, that it has shifted from hard copy to digital. Now you need to find out that which of the following, if true, provide the best reason against adopting the proposal described above. So which of the following statement, if true, would weaken this step that is taken by the company, would suggest that no, that this company should not do this change, that it should not shift from hard copy to the digital medium, right? So we need to find one reason for this. Let's look into the options. Most computer users are just as comfortable using instructions on a computer screen as they are using printed manuals. Now this looks like a very neutral option, that yes, people are very much okay with the digital medium as well as the hard copy medium, right? So they are comfortable on both of them. Looks like this may weaken the stance, the decision that has been taken by the company. So we'll keep this here. Will not eliminate this. Let's say if we have a more stronger reason to eliminate this step. Let's move to option B. Although instructions on a computer disk can be printed out cheaply using a computer printer, such printouts are less convenient to use than instructions displayed on the computer screen. Now, if you observe closely, you will see that this option gives impetus to the decision that has taken place. Now, this option suggests that people don't like using the printed medium. So if people are not liking printed medium, then definitely they will shift to digital medium, and that is the decision which has been taken. So that doesn't go against the decision, right? So let's look at number C. Because they are expensive and inconvenient to copy, printed instruction manuals provide one of the best deterrents against the illegal copying of softwares, which costs manufacturers enormous profits. Now this question says that why we should not shift from hard copy to the digital medium. This says that that hard copies are actually expensive and inconvenient to copy, and thus this will save illegal copying of data or any kind of piracy. So this option suggests why we should stick to hard copies and not go for digital medium, right? So this is our option. Looks like a very good option to not shift from hard copy to the digital medium. Let's look at the option D. Instructions supplied on a computer disk are more appropriate for business and educational programs than for computer games and other entertainment software. Now this definitely supports this move. It says that if digital medium comes in, then definitely it will support these industries, right? So definitely this is not our answer. Number E. Instructions supplied on a computer disk can be designed to provide more extensive and more easily utilized cross-reference than those provided by printed manuals. Now this option is against printed manuals. So if this is against printed manuals, then definitely it is supporting the digital medium manuals. So this is again not the option that we are looking for. So C is the answer. Let's look into the question. Researchers have concluded from a survey of people aged 65 that emotional well-being in adulthood is closely related to intimacy with siblings earlier in life. Those surveyed who had never had any siblings, or who had said that at college age they were emotionally distant from their siblings, were emotionally less well adjusted at 65 than were those who had been close to at least one brother or sister. Now this question says that people who were intimate, had good relation with their cousins in early ages, they find that they are healthy, emotionally healthy at adulthood. When they are adult, they find that they are well off. Then if this is true, then that is definitely saying that people who don't have any kind of sibling, look at this, people who don't have siblings and in college age they were emotionally distant from their siblings, were emotionally less well adjusted. So people who didn't have siblings, okay, so didn't have siblings, these people will be emotionally less well off. These people will not do nicely. These people may be emotionally wretched. Another thing to notice here is, it's just not that you should have a sibling, but also you must be connected with your sibling. See, look at this line, that distant from their siblings. What does this mean? That these people who were distant from sibling do had siblings, but they were not closely connected to them. So one thing is again clear, that just having siblings will not do. An intimate connection must be there between them, so that they can be emotionally well off at the age of 65 and further, right? So these are the two kind of conclusion we're getting. What? Number one, that they must have siblings, and number two, they must have an intimate connection with them. Just having siblings won't do. So if the researcher's conclusion is accurate, it follows that. So see, which of the following can be concluded from this? It's like an inference question. Number A, some people who attended colleges as young adults are likely as a result to be emotionally better off at age 65. Now this doesn't explain the researcher's conclusion. The researchers has established a connection between the intimacy between the siblings and the emotional well-being of the people in adulthood. But this talks more about the college life and this and your adulthood. So these are two abrupt connection that are built up. This is not the kind of cause and effect relationship that we are looking for. Number B, the emotional well-being of people age 65 depends on the emotional well-being of their siblings. No, that is not the case. People who are aged 65, their emotional well-being doesn't depends upon the well-being of the siblings. We need to connect these two definitely, but not the aspect which has been talked about. We need to talk about the intimacy between them, not their individual emotional states. Okay. Let's look at number C. It is closeness to siblings rather than just having siblings that is more relevant to people's emotional well-being at age 65. Now that definitely fulfills both these criteria. So it is just not having siblings, but also the intimacy or the warm relation between them that leads to well-being at the age of 65. Right now, that definitely supports our conclusion. Let's look at number D. People who are emotionally well off at college are more likely to be emotionally well off at the age 65 as well. Now this says again that people who are well off at college will be emotionally well off at the age 65. Now these are building connection between the college life and your adulthood, not between the intimacy between the siblings and adulthood. This is not the kind of inference that we're looking for. Now number E, intimacy with siblings is more important to people at college age than it is at the age 65. Now this has distorted the given premise. It says that the intimacy of siblings is more important in college age rather than in adulthood. Now this is not the kind of premise which is anywhere present in the passage. So option C becomes the answer here. So we have another part of the same question. It says, which of the following, if true, more seriously weakens the researcher's argument? So now we need to weaken it. So our conclusion was that to be healthy at the age of 65 in adulthood, we need to have a intimate connection with our siblings in early ages. So we need to show that somewhere people who had a good connection, a good warm connection with their siblings in the early age might not be well off in the adulthood, or people who are good at adulthood might not had a good relation with their siblings. So either of them will weaken the statement. Which of the so let's look into the options. As they get older, many people think more about their mortality and thus must confront feelings of loneliness and isolation. Now this option does not talks anywhere about the connection of siblings and adulthood. So this cannot be our option. Number B, people suffering from emotional distress of maladjustment usually remember being less intimate with other people than they actually were. So what does this option says? That these people who are suffering from emotional distress, these people were not able to remember their intimate connection with other people, but however they actually had one. So they actually had good relation they actually had good relation with their people. Now this actually goes against the premise. We have seen that people who had good relation, they actually don't have emotional stress, or they generally do good in adulthood. But you see, the opposite has happened. It might be that they are not able to remember, however, they definitely had a good relation as per the given premise. Okay, so this is the option, this is the kind of option we are looking for. Let's see the other options. Option C says, memory of one's past plays a great role in emotional well-being of older people than it does in that of younger people. So it says it's talking more about the memory rather than the intimacy aspect, or the relation, the kind of relation that we had, the adult people had in the past. So that is not the kind of relation that we are looking for. We are not looking anywhere for memory and happiness connection, right? We are looking for intimacy with the people and the happiness connection. So that is the wrong cause and effect argument here. Number D, few people can correctly identify the true sources of their emotional well-being of their emotional difficulties. Now this again does not weakens the argument, or because it doesn't establishes the right kind of connection. It talks more about identification, right? Their ability to identify things rather than their intimacy. So that is not hitting the premise at its core. Option number E says siblings are more likely to have major arguments and deep differences of opinion at college age than at any other times of their life. Now this option doesn't mean that these siblings never had any good past times, or any good intimacy, or any good kind of intimate connection between them. It might be that they had some kind of difference of opinions, or some kind of arguments, but that doesn't mean that they never had any kind of any good intimate moments. So that does not weakens the answer. For example, if you are seeing the part A of things, doesn't mean that part B is not present, right? If the siblings are fighting, that doesn't mean that they never had an affection, they never had moments of love between them. So option C remains as the most suitable answer. So this question says, a chemical company claims that since only one of 520 rats that were given high doses of a new artificial sweetener developed cancer while all others remained healthy, the sweetener is not carcinogenic for human beings and ought to be approved for human consumption. Now an experiment is conducted on 520 rats in which one rat died. It had cancer, but this cancer is not due to artificial sweetener. Now, how can I say that this cancer is not due to artificial sweetener? Because had this been the cause, then these rats would have also died, right? This 519 remaining rats would have also died if this artificial sweetener was the cause of cancer of the rat which died, right? So definitely the author wants to say that this cancer which is responsible for the death of this one rat is not caused by artificial sweetener, and thus he declares that this artificial sweetener is good for human consumption. It is suitable for human consumption. Now definitely here this author assumes that the death of this rat is not due to artificial sweetener, but due to some external factor. Now that's the point you should catch. If any external factor would not have facilitated the death of this rat, then definitely he wouldn't have said that it is good for human consumption, right? Now, having said this, we need to find an option. Let's see what the question says. Which of the following, if true, most strongly supports the chemical company's claim? Now, what does the chemical company claims? The company tells that this artificial sweetener is suitable for human consumption, and this is possible only when its assumptions are true, right? What is its assumption? That this rat died due to some external factor. Let's see which of the following option proves this. The first option, chemical that are carcinogenic for cats are usually also carcinogenic for other animals such as guinea pigs used in experiment. Now, the first thing that you should always know, that the rat which died, it died due to cancer, and this cancer is not caused by artificial sweetener, right? Now, this particular chemical, whatever it is, now the chemical that caused the death of the rat is definitely not artificially sweetener, right? So if artificial sweetener it is not the cause, or it is not the chemical that caused the death of rat, then definitely we cannot say that this will lead to the death of other animals. So this option does not strengthens the argument of the author. For the argument to get stronger, we must talk about this particular artificial sweetener, the death of the rat in general, not about any XYZ chemicals, right? Because we know this chemical is not the artificial sweetener which we are talking about, right? So this option does not talk about anything related to artificial sweetener. Let's look into the second option. The second option says the spontaneous incidence of cancer in this particular strain of cat is approximately 1 in 540. Now, this is the one which we are finding. It says that 1 out of every 540 rats generally develops cancer, generally suffers from cancer. It means that artificial sweetener might not be the reason for this one rat which is dying. And we have seen that out of this 520 cat, there is a probability that this one rat which died might have died due to this spontaneous reason or any other reason. Now this fact strengthens this fact that that the cause of the death of this one rat is not artificial sweetener but some other random event. This fact confirms this. So we can say that this artificial sweetener is free from guilt and now it can be used for human consumption. So this one strengthens the author's argument. Now let's look into the number 3. The test conducted on a certain strain of mouse shows that of 500 mice given the dose of sweetener similar to that given the rats, 53 developed cancer. Now this one is a bit dangerous answer to choose. Why? Because if 53 out of 500 mice died, then definitely there is something wrong with this chemical, right? There is no data to prove that these 53 rats that died died out of some spontaneous reason or some other external reasons. So this is a major setback. If this happens, we cannot claim that this artificial sweetener is free from any carcinogenic agent and it is sweet for human consumption. So definitely number 3 is not the one which we will go for. Option D says certain chemicals that are carcinogenic for human beings have been shown not to be carcinogenic for rats. Now if this is true, then there is an ambiguity. For example, we know that artificial sweetener didn't cause the death of this one rat, but that doesn't mean, as per the given option, this option says that if artificial sweetener does not cause the death of this rat, it does not mean it will not cause the death of human being. Now this raises a doubt that whether this whether this artificial sweetener is carcinogenic for human being or not, right? So having this doubt, we cannot claim that this artificial sweetener is good or bad for human consumption, right? So this actually makes our choice more tougher. This makes the test for artificial sweetener much more tougher. Option number E says the average lifespan of a strain of rat used in the experiment is 2 years. The chemical company terminated the experiment when the rats were 13 months old. Now, what does this mean? It means that whatever the rats that we had were somewhere around 2 years old, and But that does not directly strengthens the argument of the author, because this option does not talks about artificial sweetener directly. The author over here wants to confuse you by saying that, okay, so if the average age of all the rats are 2 years, then the student might think that it might have died due to the artificial sweetener. So finally we have number B as our strongest contender. Let's read this question. A United States manufacturer of farm equipment reported a 1988 third quarter net income of $32 million dollars, compared with $25.5 million dollars in the third quarter of 1987. This increase was realized despite a drop in the United States retail sales of farm equipment towards the end of the third quarter of 1988 as a result of a drought. So the question says, in 1987, the overall turnover of the company was $25.5 million dollars, and in 1988 the turnover is $32 million dollars. However, in this year there is drought, plus there is drop in sales of farm equipments, but still this year witnessed a rise in revenue collection. So what could be the reason, right? During the same period, during the same third quarter in 1987, the company witnessed a profit of around $25.5 million dollars, and in the next year, when the conditions were even worse, it experienced even higher revenue collection. So what can be the reason for such paradox, right? So let's see what is the question asks. Which of the following, if true, would contribute most to an explanation of the increase in the manufacturer's net income? So we need to explain the paradox here, that what should justify this abnormal growth. Option A says, during the third quarter of 1988, the manufacturers announced that it would add irrigation systems to its line of products. Now you see, just announcing the sales of some product, just announcing a new line of product doesn't mean that it will enhance the sales, right? Also, we see that there is a prevailing drought condition. So even if the company introduces something, that doesn't mean that it will the sales will increase, this and the consumers will start buying. Already there is a drought like situation in the country, right? So the next option is, in the third quarter of 1988, the manufacturers paid no wages during a 6-week strike, but stocks on hands were adequate to supply dealers. Now this option is somewhere where which says that, which opens a probability for the company to save some money. Why? Because in the same quarter, when there was a drop in sales and there was a drought, at the same point of time, the company didn't pay wages for when there was a 6-week strike, right? So definitely it would have saved some money over here, and not significantly enough, but definitely this will add on to its revenue for sure. And also it had some prepared stocks at that point of time, so definitely the labor costs might have decreased at that point of time, and because it already had stocks, so it didn't require labors for preparing the stocks, right? So from both the angles we can see there is a decrease in the expenditure of the company. When there is a decrease in the expenditure of the company, there is a rise in savings, right? So this might lead to this. So this is a strong option here. Option C says, sales in the United States of farm equipment made and sold by foreign companies were higher in the third quarter of 1988 than in any previous years. Now this question says that Now, this question explains why the company witnessed a loss in 1988, why the company it witnessed a drop in its sales, because some foreign companies entered the market, and it did capture the market in a vast manner, and so so there was a drop in the sales of this farm equipment company which we were dealing. Option D says, but obviously this option does not explains why this paradox happened. It does explains why there was a drop in the sales of this company, but it doesn't explain why, in spite of the drop in numbers, there was an increase in the revenue of the company. Now, option D says official dealers of the manufacturers had low supplies of farm equipment during the third quarter of 1988. Now, this does not explain the paradox. It says that the dealers or the dealers of the company had low supplies of farm equipment. So, if they did have, less supply of farm equipment during the third quarter, then that doesn't explains anything, right? Having less farm equipment means the supply might be less, and when the supply is less, the consumer will be less. So definitely that does explain why there is a drop in the sales number, but that doesn't explain why there is a rise in the overall collection of the company. Number E says eligible United States farmers benefited from federal drought relief fund late in the third quarter of 1980. Now, this nowhere explains this paradox, because this talks about the kind of relief that these farmers got during this period. It doesn't touches the topic. It doesn't touches the main premise of the top of the question. It doesn't talks about the company or the revenue from any angle. So definitely we have number B in hand as the best option here.